Money Vikings. Money Viking Greg here. Welcome back to the channel. If you're a first time viewer, thank you very much for joining. And a little bit about the channel. Money Vikings was a blog, started as a blog with my friend Jerry. And we've spent the last 7-8 years blogging about personal finance and investing and building wealth. And we've learned a lot along the way. Then created a YouTube channel a couple years ago, and now it seems to be growing pretty well. So anyway, thanks for joining. I want to do 5 big mistakes, 5 things that I got wrong over the years of my true wealth journey thus far. I'm middle-aged now, and these are 5 things that for the younger audience out there in your 20s and 30s and early 40s, these are things that you can avoid doing. But we all make mistakes. I got my Padres hat on, so even the Padres make some mistakes sometimes. And but they're still a great team and they're still doing a great job, but we make mistakes. Life is not a success only journey. Life has its bumps in the road for all of us. It's just part of being a human. Part of being a human is that life is not a success only perfect journey. You're gonna have bumps in the road. So I want to talk about the 5 big mistakes I've made with finances and the true wealth journey so far. And I'll talk about what I learned from those mistakes. I did a lot of things right too, and that's been part of Money Vikings, is that we are sharing a lot of things that went well. But I want to be one of those personal finance YouTubers that's not as, we're not as polished here. And so I'm going to kind of be real, going to get real about things. So I'm going to take off my Padres hat there. It's getting kind of hot out here. But yes, there's things that we do that are mistakes, and here's a couple of them. So my first one is that in hindsight, I got married too young. So I got divorced early on. The good thing is we did not have children, but I got married early on, and when I got divorced a couple years afterwards, it was pretty rocky situation, because you feel like you failed at something. And then what ends up happening is any assets or money that you've saved as a partnership, as a group, gets split in half. So my life turned out great. I now realize in hindsight that had to happen, and I'm glad it happened, because I have the beautiful family that I have now and the beautiful life that I truly love and could not imagine not having. So it worked out. So any of you that have gone through that, that things can work out. But on the same token, if you're in your 20s, 30s, be very thoughtful about who you're marrying, and for the reasons, make sure you're on the same page with finances, with forming a family, with your values, all that stuff. You really have to get on the same page with that person. So that's my number 1. My number 2 is I did not always max out the 401k, TSP, whatever, IRA. So I would go up and down. I always contributed something, so that was the winning saving grace. But I now in hindsight wish I had maxed from the very beginning and never looked back. So I've maxed at times, I'm maxed now, but I was not maxing out the whole time. So there were various reasons for that. So family formation, saving to buy a home. So that was the flip side, sort of silver lining to that whole thing, is that I really didn't use the extra money for things that decrease in value. I used the extra money for things like a home. So that was a good move. And that was a good move financially, and because you need a home. But at the same time, it really would have been ideal if I had always maxed out. So again, this is geared more towards those of you in your 20s and 30s and early 40s. Max out if you can. Okay. The third mistake. There were times when I got too conservative. So I'm Gen X, and Gen X has gone through a lot of financial trauma and a lot of financial turmoil. So number 1, we were generally speaking a generation that was a little bit known as being feral and kind of on its own. I had active parents, so I don't want to talk about this as some story about me, but generally speaking, as Gen Xers, both parents worked. A lot of times the parents were divorced, and a lot of times Gen Xers would come home from school. They were called latchkey kids. They'd come home from school and no one was home for hours. And that could start at a very young age. So my point is this: I became a little bit conservative out of loss aversion and fear. So, I also, we were investing and lived through the dot-com crash, the 2007, 2008 financial crisis crash, Bear Stearns, Wall Street, totally crazy. We've all obviously been old. We were older, but we were invested during the pandemic drop, which then came back roaring, and a couple other hiccups here and there. The biggest one was probably for me the Great Recession. So I was maybe a few years into my wealth building journey, had accumulated a little bit of assets, wasn't anything huge, but I was on my way to that first 100,000, and overnight it dropped in half. And it was like, whoa, this is really scary. So that affected us. So seeing your account go from whatever it might be, let's say it's 100,000 to 50,000 in a couple of days is jarring. And you really feel like, dang, I got really crushed here. So, but here's the deal. Always stayed invested, but that made me kind of at times kind of ramp back a lot on the S&P 500 and go more conservative into the bond funds. And the bond funds haven't done that well at all, maybe 1% or 2% here and there. But at the same time, the S&P, it's had these bumps in the road, but it's always recovered and it's always come back stronger. So I should have just stayed in the S&P, stayed in the SPY. It's self-cleansing. I didn't know as much about it at the time, so I wasn't as savvy as I am now because of Money Vikings. But anyway, if I just stayed in the S&P the whole time, would have had more at this point. Again, it's okay. I continue to invest. So if you're doing something, and you have to know your risk tolerance, so you have to know if you're conservative or aggressive or somewhere in the middle. Okay, number 4, borrowed from the 401k. Wish I hadn't done that. So the silver lining again on this one is that I borrowed to buy a home. So that worked out fine from a ROI, return on investment position. It's not like on paper I didn't lose any money. I didn't take the 20,000 or whatever it was and go on some elaborate vacation, which is a nice memory, but it's gone. There's no asset there. There's nothing to appreciate and value. But again, if I had just never borrowed and just let it ride, would have had more at this point. Okay, so that to me, was it a mistake? Let me know in the comments. Borrowing from the 401k to buy a home, is that a mistake? I don't know. I had to get into a home somehow. Okay, the 5th one is a big one. True wealth is about more than finances. That's why we do a little bit of discussions about health. That's why I do the things about art and collecting, because life is also about those things in my mind to be truly wealthy. And it's not always just about dollars and numbers in an account. That's important. It's a critical tool. But there was a time in my life when I ignored a health scare. So I had a health scare and I had something that I knew was kind of off. And if I had gone to have it addressed right away, now the outcome was fine, but I had to go through extra procedures in order for it to be totally fine. And if I had just gone right away and had it taken care of, then I would have had very little issues and it would have been much less painful for me. So everything turned out fine and totally healthy, totally addressed the issue, but I addressed it about a year later than I should have. So the point being, please, please, please take care of your health. And if you have something that's bothering you, seek an opinion. And if you don't like that opinion, seek another opinion, okay? So those are my top 5 mistakes. And the point with me sharing these is I want to be I want to be the type of YouTuber that is very humanized, and I want you to know that yes, I've had a very good true wealth journey, and a lot of the things that we're doing at Money Vikings are working very well to build wealth. But I've also made some mistakes, but you can bounce back from them. So if you made some mistakes, I want you to really focus on our channel, because it's for you if you've made mistakes. If you've made mistakes, fallen short somehow, that's why we're here. That's the whole point. So please consider that when you are on your true wealth journey, because you can bounce back, you can do better. You have now in the future, you have today. You have today to implement some of the things we talk about, and you can do it. So with that, please like and subscribe as we grow the channel, and I will see you all in the next one. Thank you very much. Bye.